Hello, everyone. Dan at Preserved Word Ministries. Well, today we are entering into chapter 17 in our study in the book of Revelation. Again, we're using my book, Understanding the Apocalypse of Jesus Christ. And just to remind you, if you want a copy of this, just email me. My email will be in the description, and I'll tell you how to get one. So I'm reading right from my book. Sometimes there's a lot more references in the book than I may give. So if you would like to have all of the scripture references, just contact me and I will tell you how to get your own copy. So using the King James Bible, you should have that at your side, and I will read the notes on chapter 17. And I pray you guys are being blessed, and I pray that you have and are continuing to grow in your understanding of Revelation. And for those who have maybe worried, with events like wars with foreign nations, political leaders rising up in other countries that look like they might be some terrible, person from the Bible, or eclipses, earthquakes, other things. I hope that you're coming to realize that Revelation was an apocalyptic event that took place some 2,000 years ago. So, chapter 17. In chapter 17, one of the seven angels comes and talks with John, and he tells him to come, and he will show him, quote, the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. We are given the meaning of the waters in verse 15. Many times throughout the Old Testament, Israel is convicted of committing fornication and rejecting God to carry on relationships with foreign nations and their gods. Here are some examples. Jeremiah chapter 2, verses 20 through 25. Jeremiah chapter 3, verses 1 through 3 and verse 9. And Ezekiel chapter 16 and chapter 23. The great whore, which is first century Israel, is seated upon, quote, the scarlet-colored beast, which is Rome. Scarlet is the color of the Roman standard, which was displayed throughout the Roman Empire. It is also the color worn by the Roman soldiers, and it is on their shields. And Jesus was stripped by the Roman soldiers, and they, quote, put on him a scarlet robe. Matthew 27, verse 28. That the great whore is sitting upon the scarlet beast denotes that Jerusalem is dependent on Rome for her authority. The Jewish leaders, for example, needed Rome's permission in order to crucify Jesus. The purple and scarlet raiment and the gold and precious stones and pearls are representative of the payment that the great whore has received for her adulteries with foreign nations and kings. The nation of Israel had embraced all sorts of vile worship and idolatry, even offering sacrifice on behalf of the beast. And remember what they said, we have no other king but Caesar. Thus, her cup is full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And in Jeremiah chapter 3, verses 2 and 3, the Jews are told that they have, quote, polluted thy land with thy whoredoms and with thy wickedness, and thou hast a whore's forehead. Once again, wicked and adulterous Jerusalem proudly displays her whoredom upon her forehead for all to see. Jerusalem is called Babylon the Great. For just as Babylon was once the epitome of rebellion against God, a place of the worst idolatries and wickedness, so now Jerusalem has become. Remember what Jesus said to Jerusalem and about their forefathers, how they had rejected and killed the prophets. And now they had rejected and killed the Son of God, their own Messiah. They had become the wickedest of nations in the greatest rebellion against God. For it was the Jewish leaders who demanded that Christ be crucified. They needed the authority from Rome, but they were the ones who demanded his death. The great whore being, quote, drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus is spoken of in numerous places in Scripture. For example, the parable of the vineyard owner in Matthew 21, verses 33 through 39. Again in Matthew 23, verses 30 through 35. And also in Acts chapter 7, verse 52. So John cannot help but look on in astonishment. In verses 7 through 14, the angel explains to John, quote, the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her. And much of this has been explained in the notes on chapter 13. So if you go back and watch the chapter 13 video. The beast that, quote, was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition is General Titus, the son of Vespasian. In one sense, as we have seen, the beast is Rome itself, which during the chaos following Nero's suicide seemed to be dying. Yet the beast rose to life in its full glory when General Vespasian assumed the throne. And in verse 10, we are told that 5 kings have fallen. These 5 kings would have been Julius Caesar, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius. The one who is would refer to Nero, the present current beast. The one not yet to come would refer to Vespasian, the one who would take Nero's place. And the 8th king would then be General Titus, Vespasian's son, the Roman general who leads the final assault on Jerusalem and its temple. There's much reason to believe that he is the little horn of Daniel 7:8. The one who will fulfill Jesus' prophecy concerning, quote, the abomination of desolation in Matthew 24:15. For the Roman army, under the authority of Titus, would make Rome desolate, and they would set up their Roman standards in the temple. Did I just say they would make Rome desolate? If I did, I'm sorry. They were the ones that would make Jerusalem desolate. They would set up their standards in the temple, and the temple would be destroyed. And this is Matthew 24:15 that prophesied of this. And then Titus would sit on the throne for only 2 years before dying and going into perdition. The 10 kings are listed in the notes on chapter 13. So again, if you want to go back to chapter 13, their loyalty is to Rome, from whom they receive their power, and in return, they give their power and strength, which is their soldiers, to Rome to fight under its command. And that's how Rome would work. When they conquered a nation, then those armies would become part of the Roman army. Under Nero's reign of terror, as well as that of the future emperors, these kings would make war with the Lamb by persecuting his church. But the Lamb would overcome them. At present, with Nero's suicide, and in time with the fall of the Roman Empire. These 10 kings have committed fornication with the great whore Jerusalem in times past. But now they have joined with Rome and shall make her desolate and naked and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And this is not the first time either which God used the very nations which Israel had committed fornication with to bring about its destruction. Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 11 through 13, verse 30 and 31. And Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 37 through 41, talk about times past, when the very nations that Israel had committed fornication with were used to bring judgment upon her. And Israel had committed fornication with Rome. In fact, the greatest fornication, for they had rejected the Messiah killed him and cried out, "We have no other king but Caesar." And instead of offering sacrifices to Jesus Christ, their Messiah, they offered sacrifices up to Nero Caesar, the beast. And so the scripture rightly says, "For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will." So again, I just pray that you're being blessed by this study, that you're growing in understanding. This is kind of like a very basic overview on the book of Revelation. There are some fantastic books out there. I think I have recommended a few. I will grab a couple off my shelf here. Okay, a very basic one that can also be used for studies. In fact, that's what it's designed for. And that's kind of what I designed my book for, is to give an overview so that it could be used with studies. Is this one by Peter Tremblay. I'm holding the title up for you if you want to just hit pause. The Revelation, the Real Story. It's available on Amazon. It's very, very basic and designed to be used for small studies. Another very good book, much more detailed. What is this, about 500 pages? Is Back to the Future, a study in the book of Revelation by Ralph E. Bass Jr. And that's also on Amazon. And then a really, really good book. In fact, this is my favorite of all of my books on Revelation. And it is called Revelation 4 Views. It's the revised version by Steve Gregg. Revelation 4 Views by Steve Gregg. And what he does is he goes through the entire book and he gives the various interpretations of all 4 of the major views of Revelation: the historicist, the preterist, the futurist, and the idealist. And I will tell you, Steve Gregg is a preterist. His interpretation matches mine. And you can read what other viewpoints have to say about those scriptures, but I believe that his preterist interpretation of the book of Revelation is just fantastic. He does an excellent job. And he also has some great videos on YouTube, a great overview on the book of Revelation, which would go hand in hand with my videos. So these are some resources I would recommend. And again, I designed this to be a flyover, not to get into a whole bunch of real fine details, but to give you kind of an overview and to be used for studies. So if you want a copy of this, let me know. God bless you guys, and we will continue on next week. Take care, everyone.